I'm gonna ask. So before we start this AMA, I'm going to throw questions at you that you probably can't answer, and I don't want you to feel obligated. Not that you ever would anyway, but I don't want you to feel obligated to answer questions or commit to things that you can't commit to. So I'm just gonna take stuff from the community and pass it to you, and feel free to be like, "Nah, I don't want to talk about that," or "We can't answer that question right now," or anything like that. Like, please feel free to do that.
Of course.
Because there's questions that I'm really curious about because I don't know the answers to some of these questions, um, and I would definitely be interested in hearing your thoughts. The first one that I'm going to pull here um, comes from Wolfenite, who I had the privilege of playing within a D&D session yesterday. I want to say it was my second one of the day. It might have been my third. I'm not entirely sure. I think it was the second, though. It all kind of blended together. Um, he would like to know more about mining in the world of Mirandus. Will the environment be in depth, and will you have to tunnel in the soil and remove the soil to keep expanding the mine in search of ore and gems?
It's a good, really good question. There are some things that, and Craig and Lucas can talk about some of the realities of doing stuff like that too. But mining mining is something that there are many topics that you might not expect that I will wake up in the middle of the night and it'll just be spinning in my head and I won't have a solution to it and it'll drive me nuts. I get very uncomfortable if I feel like there's not a very clear path from a development standpoint because I don't believe in introducing a ton of risk into projects. If if we decide that, so what you guys saw today in that video is the Unreal Engine, and we've used, all of us have used probably every engine out there. There's lots of different engines, and they all have positives and negatives. To make an MMO with Unreal is an MMO is a massive back end initiative, and having that sync seamlessly with Unreal is a possibility. But we ultimately, if we need to choose a completely different technology to support what we want the game to be, we'll have to pivot and do that. So while we're working on getting a gameplay vertical slice stood up and proving that out, technically things are being checked out behind the scenes to make sure that we're making a good decision. This is a long-winded way of going here, but mining, if you can dig into the world, means that the world itself is deformable. Um, that would be a pretty huge technological pivot to say that anyone at any time at any given point can just start digging holes. Um, I'm I can't allow the world to have that because I just don't think it works. Because wouldn't a group of players want to try to do something absolutely shockingly crazy, like let's dig out the bottom of a mountain and see if the top of the mountain falls or if it still hovers? Um, let's, like let's just start digging so many holes that people can't even walk between towns anymore and just laugh at them because they can't even go between towns anymore because there's massive craters. A fully deformable world is an extremely risky thing to take on in a massive multiplayer project. Lucas, you look like you got some thoughts on this.
Yeah. I, so I worked on a game that had deformable terrain, and it was just a single player game. Um, I don't even think we did a multiplayer component on because it was just too many things, too many issues. But yeah,
Was that Fracture?
yeah, you know the one. Oh yeah, that was a LucasArts game.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, like just from the bug aspect alone, it's almost untenable. But there's just so many there's so many things that you don't anticipate when the very ground that you're building the game on, you can't rely on.
And
There,
there's people that are going to be cool and they wouldn't try to do something too crazy, but if you allow fully deformable terrain, I think what you'd get is you'd get a few people that are coming into the game and making it such that no one else can enjoy it or play.
Yeah, you
yeah,
might have somebody in a
Um,
world like Valheim who decides to, for reasons unbeknownst to anyone, dig an entire gigantic trench around your entire little city so that you can't go anywhere and you immediately fall in and die. I don't know anyone who would do like something like that. Gurulanius. It's just weird that Gurulanius might be the type of person that Gurulanius could do something like that. Just saying.
so there's that, right? We can't. I don't think we can have, and also just from a beautification side of things, guys. Like, when you saw that video, that's kind of tailored geometry somewhat in that world, right? Here's where the cliffs will be. Here's where the streams will be. And if you turn that over to awesome artists like Lucas and Craig, and it's like you're going to get beautiful things coming out of it, and it has to be curated a bit in that way. So there's that side of it. We cannot have a fully deformable world because people just screw it up and then Mirandus will suck. Um, then on the other side, there's I already know where every single thing in the world is, and in this mine, I walk into it, and it is at this particular point in the mine where the platinum respawns. I've mined it, but I have a loop I run, and I'll be back in 5 minutes when it respawns again. That also sucks. Um, again, if everyone knows where everything is at any given time, that automatically isn't fun because there is no adventure there. You already know exactly what you're going to be encountering. So then here's some middle grounds, right? Some middle grounds are there are conditions in the world where little boulders spawn. Um, and as you just never quite know where they are going to be, but the conditions are around there, like, oh hey, it's rocky, and we define this concept of mountain, and there's a chance of something randomly spawning around there. So you know that to me also just doesn't sit right. Mining's a big question, guys. I'm gonna give that. It also doesn't sit right with me when I'm walking around a game and they're like, boop, oh, hey, look, a boulder appeared and it's sparkly. Oh, I guess that means I can go hit it with a pickaxe. So I'm not too happy about that solution either because I just feel it's weird for boulders to appear in weird places and you tap on it.
They're not known to do that.
Um, I'll tell you the idea that I probably like the most, and Craig and Lucas can tell me I'm crazy for saying this. I actually like the idea that there might be entrances to caves or mountains that might. So think of it like a hybrid model. Like, we can define huge areas in a mountain or underneath the earth that you can take a pickaxe to and mine and screw with however you want. But you'll be chasing inside of there a good vein of something that you might find. And no matter what a player does within that confined space, which could be quite large, they could actually create we could let that be deformable via a pickaxe and taking out, certain chunks, um, at a time. It wouldn't be fast like Minecraft. I mean, it would probably be a significant effort to bore into the side of a mountain at certain key places. But once you bored in there, you could kind of take that whichever way you'd want. I mean, that to me seems like something pretty good. And a large mine, might take 6 months of people working to try to get through all of the veins, and you know there could be the possibility of collapsing. I mean, I would much rather prefer it if mining was a big, huge deal, because I think if you own, you know, Damascus steel, with carbon nanotubes in their structure, which they found in Damascus steel, if we're going to nerd out, um,
Let's.
I think owning a very beautiful weapon crafted from the finest of ore should be a huge deal. Should be a huge deal. So acquiring that ore needs to be a big deal as well. But Craig and
Something
Lucas,
like
what do you?
that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
You probably have to add geological surveys where you can find that ore.
And maybe an expertise that gives you a better, you know, I like the idea. I like the idea that based on your skill set, you could actually see things in the environment that other people couldn't see. So, you might walk into a mine, and if you are not an experienced miner, you would just see rock. Um, but different pieces of the material or texture could expose themselves to you based on your skill level.
It's a really interesting mechanic. I've always enjoyed that in games when you have the ability to detect traps, and you walk into a place, and you in your party, you're the only one who can see that this particular stone looks a little bit funny and maybe you shouldn't step on it, and you go use the opportunity to disarm that. I think that that's a super important thing. I've got a question here from John T to Craig and Lucas about why did you guys? Oh, sorry.
Oh, hi,
Go ahead.
John.
Yeah,
John's
John,
been a big Gala supporter since the beginning,
for
guys.
for a long time.
Pretty
Um,
cool, brother.
John wants to know why Craig and Lucas decided to come work with Gala Games.
Oh, that's easy. I wanted to work with Mike again on a project that we could actually get sort of intimate with. Really get inside of it. Um, I'd been working on a lot of like really uh, over the top AAA projects, and um, I guess when you get like that many people working on a project, you really don't have a lot of input into what you're making. It's more of like some of these game series have turned into like almost like an assembly production.
It gets a little uncreative and a little bit grindy, I would imagine.
Right.
How about you, Lucas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to my guest. Um, I've really loved working with Mike and Greg and on the project that we did, you know, Temple of Elemental Evil, and that after 20 years, I realized how rare that was. It's not every team that work gels like that. It's not every team that is able to bring their own input into it, like Greg said. Um, and it's great to be able to have that experience and having done things like that. Um, but yeah, Mike gave me kind of the elevator pitch of what the game was, and uh, I said, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Mike is an amazing, compelling person. Amazingly compelling person. I Every time I talk to him about games, I am more and more interested in well anything that he decides to create. Um, okay, got another question here from Robert Trissardi. Um, why are taverns one of the most common buildings in Mirandus? What is a tavern's special purpose?
I I see a tavern's special purpose, mechanical purpose, being serving food and drink, which we want to play a major role in Mirandus. Um, I think that's going to be a key component of your ability to heal and the speed of your healing. If a fresh meal is served to you, um,
With gravy,
then
perhaps?
gravy's 100%.
Yeah,
I,
okay.
I like gravy. Um, who doesn't like gravy?
Apostates. That's who.
Um, so I think it serves a mechanical purpose in the game. I think it's also going to be a central meeting place. You can imagine going to a town, and this is a place where you can go, you can sit, you can meet people. I mean, I ideally, look at Lord of the Rings, right? It's like,
Just thinking that.
let's meet at the Inn of the Prancing Pony or something. I'm not sure I even remember the name. But I'm hoping that they are a central meeting place for adventurers too.
Uh,
Um, I love the vibe of a tavern. I think if is there any more quintessential place in a game of this setting, a roaring fire, a hot meal, people talking, adventurers meeting up, you know, could there be a sitting at a table and dividing up the loot after a great adventure? Would a tavern hire a bard? If we really get that music system in place, I love the idea of a master musician being in the corner. And to me, a tavern or a bar is a place where someone can set the mood and the tone and the vibe. They'll have food choices, they'll have the walls, the decorations, the music. I'm really hoping that no two are alike and no two are similar. I'm hoping that they're destinations for some people. Um, so I think it's just quintessential Mirandus, the tavern experience, and I think it's just an absolute RPG icon. And I love the idea of people voting on what the greatest tavern in Mirandus is,
I love that.
or maybe even like a collectible to prove that you have been there. You
Now,
know,
now I've got another fantastic question here from Dr. Carrot, who I've never actually seen in Discord before. So, welcome, Dr. Carrot. It is fantastic to have you here. Yeah, it's cool to see new faces that really jump out. Now, this is an important question because in every game that I play that involves crafting, this is one of my most frustrating things that I have to encounter. And that is when you craft something, you have that thing, and you can't necessarily get rid of that thing, and it's just simply there for all of eternity, forever and ever and ever. Amen. And you can't usually break it down. So, which of course is ridiculous because you have to break things down in the real world. Will there be the concept of recycling or repurposing in Mirandus? Could you melt down a sword to make a new sword or shield?
I the answer to that is absolutely yes. So again, Mirandus is not a world that we're trying to make up. I think you really can screw a game up by trying to make up a bunch of weird crap. I would say in a medieval world, you could reforge something. Something could be melted down and repurposed. Um, so the answer to that is absolutely yes. Or even, I think even potentially a grip or a handle on a sword. That I don't know. That I Where it makes sense, the answer is yes. I I like the idea that resources in Mirandus, if we tune the game right, are finite. And the land will always expand, and more stuff could open up. But if every player in Mirandus just decided to just pillage the world, metal could become scarce. Having a sword might become of incredible value simply because it could be melted back down for ore. Um, so I like that. I like that concept. If you could generally do it in real life or back in a medieval world, we're going to try to recreate that. And if you hold that line, then you're in a better place from a development perspective because it just answers questions in everyone's mind the entire time you're working. Um, there will be some times and places in the future where we have to just say, okay, well, it's breaking down, it's just not working, and we're going to have to try to insert some mechanics in here to repair it. Um, but I would rather have that happening far down the road and stick to a more physical universe, at least from a development perspective.
Got a question from Ultra 625, who was one of the guys that you and I played with yesterday. Eric was there as well. I forget his character's name, but he would like to know if Barvin the Halfling Rogue and or Thorgil the Dwarf Barbarian will be NPCs in Mirandus. Is that possible?
Um,
You don't have to
so,
say yes. It is okay.
oh no, no, I'm not. You know, no, there is no question that that would hurt my feelings, guys, or be too crazy for me. I think it's important to just have an open forum about this stuff. So, on a comedic level, like, yeah, for sure, man, we should probably get those guys in there. That'd be really funny. Um, but I think that the big, huge question that there's a big, huge question there about NPCs. Like, what role will NPCs play in the world of Mirandus? And that's another pretty big question mark for me, because ideally the players are in this world and running it and managing it and controlling it. And for every NPC we make, we've just taken a responsibility away from a player. So, for instance, you know, guards. Are we going to have a mechanic where you can just hire a bunch of guards and they can automatically go and kill things that are getting close to the town? I mean, as an RTS player, like, man, that sounds cool. I'd love to have an army of these little guys running around and just automatically killing stuff. But what does that look like and mean? How many could I have? How many would follow me around the world? Would I be in a scenario where I would never be in a group with people? It's irrelevant. I've amassed a lot of money, and I now have 10, 15 NPCs following me around, killing everything for me. So I'm, you know, shopkeepers. I like the idea, or like inside of shops. I think that's kind of a place where an NPC just makes a lot of sense. If you're not there at your weapons shop, you still, or your tavern, you still kind of want to see somebody behind the bar. And I think as fun as our trade and commerce might end up being in Mirandus, you know, would a tavern be a place where you'd have to stand behind the bar all night in order to serve somebody a drink? I think you'd want to choose an NPC there. So
So you kind of
I'm,
draw the line between combat and non-combat NPCs.
I think, Craig, I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, do you see the downfall of just assembling yourself a massive army of robots? And we say NPCs, we're kind of talking about robots in the game. Um, so I think combat is a place where, and a follower makes sense to me too. I love the idea of maybe a little guy following you around, and, he's your henchman, or he might, like a familiar almost. Um, Someone you could command, or someone who is gathering something for you in the field you could order around. That's kind of fun. I really want the farm bot from Townstar and some of those NFTs to be able to translate and come over. I think that'd be really cool. So an assistant of some kind, a valet, someone who can hold things for you that don't fit in your pack, or someone. I like that idea, but I don't want people assembling armies of robots, such that it undermines the value of the social experience.
Okay, awesome. That and just for everybody who's wondering, yes, all of this has been recorded and will be posted on YouTube once they de-nerf us.
Hey, and
Um,
one place that we like need to put a lot of attention, guys, and just this is coming, is there will be a Mirandus website, that is slick and polished and is capturing all these thoughts and ideas, development roadmap, things of that nature. So that's in the queue, guys. We haven't forgotten about that. Same thing with Townstar.
for sure, yeah. Okay, Zarketh, you can submit questions for the AMA by asking here. Just go ahead and ask your question, and we're talking. That's what we're here to do. Let me bounce around in the Discord just a little bit and see if we have anything else showing up. How are you feeling about today, Michael?
I love today.
It's a good day, isn't it?
It's
I'm
great,
kind
dude.
of I'm a little ragged right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh,
I'm a
I
little
love what
ragged.
we're building, guys. I do. And I think Lucas said something, and that is really important. In our lives, and especially people who are game developers. No one's made 100 games. I mean, it doesn't work that way. It takes a team of people years typically to get something out the door, and then I mean, it can be out the door. Doesn't mean it's done, right? I mean, you manage it post launch, and um, I think an 18-month development cycle is just about as small as it gets for a credible entry. Really out there, and there's cases of things that are far smaller, but I think you'll understand my point, which is you don't get to do this that much. You don't get to be in a team growing something from scratch to something wonderful that you can get out the door and that you love. And during that time, those years you spend on something, do you get the opportunity to work around people that you just really care for and love to have a beer with? So there are many years of a game developer's life where he's doing stuff and it's obviously kind of okay. But it can be a real grind. It can be a lot of late nights. You might hate the damn project, but you feel like, gosh, I should stick it out anyway. Or it can kind of suck. It cannot be enjoyable. Um, but it is an incredible privilege in anyone's life, and I feel like I've had the opportunity, really once or twice tops, and I feel like I'm getting that opportunity again to be making something truly freaking awesome with a truly freaking awesome group of human beings. Um, and I think that's what kind of Lucas was responding to. And Craig, we had that magic at Troika Games on Temple of Elemental Evil, and that was not just us. It was Tim Kaine, who I love, Steve Moret, Sean Craig. I mean, Peter Delgado, Corey Pelton. I mean, all those guys. We had an awesome group of people. We were a family, and we loved what we were building. And so I believe, if you believe in mystical cooking of any kind, like if you're loving something while you're making it, it tastes better. um, Everyone on our team is a family, and that's the Town Star side too. Here at Gala, we're a family. We're not a sports team. I hate that development analogy. It's a sports team, and you bring in players, and that sucks. We're a family here, and we need to love what we're doing and building all the time, because I believe that love will translate into a great product.
Okay, so I've got some more questions for you now. Um, one two critical things here. The first is Winter demands I say that I stop giving you easy questions.
Oh,
He
no more
wants
softballs.
no more softballs. He specifically said underhanded pitches. So I'm gonna hit you with the hard ones. Are you ready? You ready for
Yeah,
this?
yeah. Give me some
Okay.
hard ones, man.
Okay. I'm channeling my pacifist berserker, is what he's saying now in chat. So I'm ready for this. Okay, now here's what they want to know. Now winter is interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit about winter here for just a second. Winter has lots and lots of very good questions. Makes charts. He is a maker of charts and spreadsheets. You guys are kindred spirits in that regard. And he has made charts and spreadsheets and said, look, the town of the Archduke. If I look at the town of the Archduke and I compare it against two towns of the whatever the next one down is, the town of the Archduke, of which there's only 5 of these available. Why do I have more spots for a equal cumulative price tag if I buy two of the ones that are the next one down than if I buy one town of the Archduke.
Um,
So essentially the question is, what makes the town of the Archduke awesome?
yeah, I mean, so one thing that I've mentioned a lot before, and again, guys, we need to get the website stood up and to capture a lot of this information. The grander the scale of the deed, and every deed comes with places you can put things like buildings, right? But it also comes with a home. That home is quite large as you climb up the chain, and a home is a completely secure facility where you can rest, recover your hit points, store your goods. It also comes with buffs. Every single deed owner in the game is going to have buffs, and the higher you climb up the deed chain, the more powerful those buffs might be. Um, the buffs will generally be relevant to the type of town, but you know, think of it as a, a cool perk or a bonus to attributes. So you're it's not just about land size and how many buildings you have. It's also about the perk you get as the owner of that particular deed. There's also the effects of the walls themselves. So the walls are, a the walls are something that animals and creatures uh, don't like, and the bigger the wall, the more it will repel them. So, if you've got a very small, a little, homestead or something, I mean, a wolf is going to feel pretty good about getting quite close to you. Whereas a farming hamlet, it'll be a more grander wall, if you will. So the higher you climb up, the better it wards off monsters. The smaller chance there is that something of a higher level will march on into your town and maybe wreak a little havoc. Um, so, like, if you have a citadel, and there is a dragon flying around the world, a dragon is not going to want to come too close to a citadel. He's going to be afraid of it. Um, but let's say there's a little group of goblins. If you have a little small farming hamlet, if those goblins get hungry enough or they get bold enough, they might try to hop the fence and come in. Um, Whereas the wolves might be a little more leery before they would try to roll through town. And we're trying to simulate there just like the you know the strange nature of things. When you look at animals in the wild, they're very leery of combat. There's a lot of posturing because a broken ankle means you're dead. An infection could mean you're dead. And so animals in the wild, and I'm hoping monsters feel this way too. They will think twice before just jumping out at somebody and going for it. So better walls repel monsters better. Better homes come with better deeds, and that comes with better buffs as the deed owner.
Okay, there you go. So this is why you would want a wait, hold on,
Town.
a town of the Archduke more than a town of the Prince plus two farmer villages.
Now, that is not to say that is a reason why someone might want that, right?
Right.
You also get better crests, and if we're gonna spice that up a little bit, but if you are looking at Mirandus from a purely mercantile aspect, I think you could see someone owning several smaller deeds and trying to put them in more strategic locations if you're trying to corner the market, let's say, in a particular good that you would want to mine or harvest out there in the world. So
Okay.
I don't think it is as simple as it just go up the chain and everything gets a little better. Um,
Fair.
it's more about
Fair.
kind of your goal as a player.
Now, I have a question here from Mal. Now, you know Mal. Mal is he's in our Discord all the time.
I love
I
Mal.
He's amazing, right? I'm pretty sure he stayed up all night listening to us. I'm not entirely sure. He may have to let us know about that. Because, oh, by the way, guys, there probably isn't going to be a big reveal Mirandus Monday tomorrow. We kind of are revealing a lot today, so and it's Monday somewhere. So Mal can actually get a little bit of catch up sleep because he's very important. We don't want him to have a problem because he's not getting enough sleep, or me to have a problem because I'm not getting enough sleep. Just putting that out there. Okay, so he has a very important question. He needs to know how little sleep he's going to get because he's busy extracting milk from cows in his dairies to turn into cheese. So, what does the life cycle loop look like for crafting? And I think broadly, this can be like a crafting loop sort of question.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be you're going to need to I would call them kind of crafting reference points in the world. Yes, if you want milk, you're going to have to milk a cow, but you're not going to have to, pull a stool up, and we're not going to zoom in on the udders, and then there's going to be some sort of like VR grab the udder and
Don't just
pinch and
yep
squirt.
yeah. Oh
What
no, he did it. He
you
did it. He went
know.
there.
I mean, there's it needs to be a task that needs to be performed, but there's a balance there between just being fundamentally too real because that's just not it's not super crazy fun. Um, at Zynga on Farmville, I would use the term shit on the boots. I can say that, right? Are we all 18
Yeah,
in
yeah,
this?
yeah. Sure.
You know,
It's in our toss. We can
you're
say
making
that.
a farming fantasy game when you're making a game like Farmville, and you want to reference real life things,
But you're
but
not
you
actually
don't.
making a farm.
That's right, and we made it a point when we were making Farmville 2 to take everyone to a farm and make sure they understood kind of the cycle of it all. And I spent years living in the country, where you heat the house with a wood burning stove. Um, you know,
Do do do
it's,
do 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 do.
careful, my people.
They're
Um,
my people too, bro.
um, so it needs to be tasks that need to be performed. You will have to do the things that you would expect to do to gather up core crafts and materials. uh, but how incredibly detailed that task might be, you know that kind of remains to be seen. I think with cows, I don't think it's gonna be an utter zoom in. That'd be utterly boring. Oh, see what I did there?
It would
Um,
be, yes.
I think tree chopping is far more difficult, and probably, we're going to need to gather wood. That is going to be super critical in the world of Mirandus, and tree chopping is very difficult to do. How big is the tree? Where do the marks go? What happens to the tree if it falls over? From a physics aspect, can it fall over on anything? Does it do any damage? What happens
Mm,
if many trees are felled? Does that block a path and no one can walk around it? Trees are tricky. Um, trees are tricky.
I
But you're
see everything, Mystical Oaks. Yes, of course I'm watching that chat. Don't even think that I'm not watching. I'm watching all the chats right now. Just needing to say that. Continue.
but you can see Lucas's eyes and Craig's eyes, tree chopping, and like all of our minds are like, it's a difficult, it's a, there are things that are difficult to put into a game. That's one of them.
Okay. What are let's I don't want to leave Lucas and Craig sitting there watching quietly. I would love to know, and this is a personal question from me. What about building this game excites you guys the most? Don't all speak at once.
I was going to let Lucas go first.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think that, a big part of it is there's going to be so much world building and so much that we do get to figure out. And so, sorry, my cat is leaning
You
into me
you, you should introduce us to your cat. I think that people love cats. The internet loves
right
cats. Oh my god.
Oh, animal.
That is a beautiful cat. What was its name?
Ziggy.
Ziggy. Wonderful.
She feels like she only can pay attention to me when I'm talking to people on Zoom. But
Pretty normal.
yeah, pretty much. But yeah, it's we have a true blank slate to create a world, and there's a lot of already like a great look and feel to it, and we have an idea of what the game's going to be, but there's so many details to figure out, so many problems to solve, so many things to explore. I'm also really excited about the things that are going to emerge from all this stuff, because we're making really complex, or systems that are going to interact very complexly in ways that we can't anticipate, and that's going to be interesting.
I think it's going to be really really fun. And by the way, Lucas, you have some friends who absolutely love your hair. They say that it is luscious.
Well, thank you.
You have
It's
just
very pandemic-y right now.
That's okay. My hair is very pandemic-y too. I understand. I just went the other direction because mine just looks like a sad cotton ball when it grows out. How about you, Craig? What do you got?
Well, I'm looking forward to the world building aspect as well. One of the best times I had on working with Mike on the Temple of El Medieval was setting up specific scenarios and really giving the game a lot of character. So, and we've already started talking about that a little bit, but I won't go into any huge details on that stuff. But I do like bringing a lot more character to the world.
Awesome.
I think one of the things that's interesting, Brink, if I were to throw this out there,
Of course.
the neat part, the enjoyable part about making a game, the daily enjoyable part about it is it is a puzzle. There's not straightforward answers. Everything requires some thought and some figuring out, and solving a puzzle is such an enjoyable experience. And I think there's something really interesting, as I get on in years, realizing that the games, like I like Townstar because how is the best way to make a town? What's the best way to make a town? How best can I work with my neighbors using neighbor delivery? How best, like, what is the right recipe for it? I don't know the answer to that. So I think if you're making a game, you don't know all the answers. You don't know, you can't prescribe what the experience is going to be like to players. That's a win. And making the game feels like you're solving a puzzle. And if the players have that same feeling when they're playing the game, that also to me is really awesome. So it's like we're solving a puzzle by making this, and hopefully you guys will be solving your own puzzles when you're playing it. Like, how can we make it into that dungeon? I wonder what's up there on that cliff. Kind of a sense of wonder and a strategy that you employ to try to make something happen in the game and then see how it all goes. And it's just as fun for us to watch what you guys do in the world as it is for you probably to be in the world, we're hoping.
Awesome. I love it, man. I absolutely love it. I got a quick question for Lucas here. Would you consent to us tokenizing your cat? The community would like to know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think she would love that.
Okay, great. Then we're going to stick that on the roadmap. We're going to do ourselves a Ziggy
Everything
NFT.
can be tokenized.
Yeah, no, there's going to be a Ziggy NFT. I'll get with the devs sometime this week. If you get me an amazing picture, we will drop a Ziggy NFT to the node holders. And
Okay.
we'll make it a rather elite NFT. So there's probably only going to be about 500 of them. And I think that the node holders who manage to get one of those will be very very pleased with that. Okay, so I would like, if this is okay with you, Michael, I'd like to pause the stream for a little bit and take about a 15-minute break before we come back and do a little bit of a Townstar AMA. Does that sound acceptable to you?
Sure.
Awesome. So
Is that
I'm
cool with
going.
the people? Is there any like major outstanding questions?
They have questions that well, okay, fine. This is not a softball question. Groove wants to know if there's going to be classes, rogue, warrior, ranger, etc.
Mm.
But that's like a really big question.
No, I mean, I think that those are. I mean, this is, if we want to talk absolute top of my mind, our actual RPG system that we're going to employ is next. You know, I
Okay.
like classes in that you can dedicate yourself to something, and that a there might be a path to greatness, or someone who has achieved greatness in that class, and they can help you or mentor you become awesome. I think there's something interesting and genuine about it's an easy way to connect socially inside an MMO too. Like, what are your particular skills or abilities that you bring to the table? And I think a class is a really easy way to communicate that to people. So I like the idea of classes. I'm not sure. I mean,
It's okay. It's okay.
I'll take. No, no, it's okay. And you can disappear if you want, Mr. Brink, and I'll
No,
just,
no, no.
we can sit here and pontificate for a little bit on classes. I don't know if we would be a completely classless system, which I think, if we take a look at like Ultima Online, where there's kind of no such thing as a class. You just do things, and the more you do them, you get better at them. And then there's kind of this like logarithmic curve that makes it practically impossible to hit the perfection or the expert mark of something. Um, like 0 through 100% proficiency. I think when it's completely classless, you miss something. I think there's something fun about jumping into a game and announcing what your fantasy is when you're inside of that particular world. So I I don't know exactly how I would want the class system to work, because it makes me think about, well, what if I dedicate myself to a class? How do I back out of that? Am I switching classes? Do I, it causes my mind to spin quite a bit. But what I will say is that I think that's a really fun aspect of an RPG. That is the first most exciting thing I think that most players think about when they're going to come into a world is, who do I want to be? What do I want to be an expert as? What do I want to be thought of in the world if I really take this all the way to the nth? And so I like the idea of defining that, or having at least a journey that you can look at clearly, in front of you to achieve expertise along a certain vector. So, what do you think, Craig?
I'm partial to some of the systems that have class switching. You want to try something different or see something that you want to try out, you can switch.
I'll tell you this. I mean, if let's say you're like, oh, I want to be an archer or a ranger or something. I mean, people need to exist in this world and be able to switch and try new things. So I, you know, I would never want anyone to be making a choice up front that predetermines their destiny inside of Mirandus. Like, oh, this sucks. I wish I wouldn't have chose a sorcerer. I wish I would. Oh my God. Now I wish I was a. It can't be that kind of game, because I don't want people to have many different characters as much as, like, I'm hoping you come into the game and you grow bigger and greater and stronger across any vector that you would want. So um, I like the idea of classes, but the player definitely needs to be able to switch, or mix and match those particular skill sets and abilities in interesting ways.
Okay, I've got another interesting one here for you. Tom guy's like, hey, I just got back into the live stream. Left a couple of hours ago. Does someone want to give me the key bullet points from the last hour or two? Wow. Good luck with that, bro. I'm sure somebody, actually, the funny thing is I guarantee somebody is sitting there taking bullet point notes of everything. I know that it exists. Okay, so Punjab has a question that he has been asking, and I have not gotten to. Not because it's not a good question, but because it's well, just because there's been other things that I've been asking about. But he really wants me to focus on it. He wants to know, why is it good to be the king, Michael?
Oh, and Mirandus?
What does being the king get you? What happens if you're the king?
Well, there's a lot to talk about there. So, first off, you get across the board huge buffs um, that are going to make you shockingly difficult to take down. You also can apply buffs to many people inside of your court that will also make them to uh, very powerful. So I'm hoping that the politics of being in the king's court and incurring his favor and assembling a great court is going to be a cool and interesting part of the game. Um, you obviously have a massive home. You have a castle. You can house an unbelievable number of people and have an incredibly grand place that very few people are going to be able to say most likely they've ever even stepped foot inside of. I think that's kind of cool and special. You have
What
a
is
ton
the
of
buff?
territory.
Punjab wants to know, what is the buff. This is
I don't
important.
know yet, man. It's we have to
See?
define the system first, and then we can figure out exactly what that is. Also, being king, guys, outside of the world, Mirandus means the kings do have a direct line to us here at Gala. We don't need to tell you who they are; that's their business. But we, um,
Some very
they
interesting conversations going on.
they will have a bit of a voice on exactly what they want their citadel to be. Um, a lot of the that's a big reason why they're willing to obviously engage and spend millions of dollars to be king. Um, they kind of have a specific need or want or ask, and as long as it doesn't make the game suck, we would kind of custom tailor their particular citadel, and that's not just for them, guys. It's also to being conscious of the world of Mirandus too. If we really hope that journeying to a citadel is a big deal, that it's a cool, interesting place to go, and that it might have a focus or a reason to be there. And it's exciting when you make your way over across the land to visit a particular citadel. So we want them to be big, cool, and unique. There's other things specifically around the king that I'm very interested in, um, exploring at least. Like this is not a PvP game. You can't just walk around and bonk anyone over the head at any given time. But there is something interesting about saying there's a king, there's a court, and there's maybe even the possibility that you could swear fealty to that king yourself by an amulet or a ring or some identifiable mark. And by having that identifiable mark, maybe you are automatically pitted against any other kingdom that is not aligned with that king. So an entire citadel or king could just say, I don't like this other one. And anyone who's aligned with that other king, there could be a PvP situation at any given moment. So, I think there's some interesting mechanics there to explore.
So I got to.
Um,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
it's going to be a big, huge freaking deal, and it's going to be super cool. And it has to be because I think that's, again, what the Citadel owners are interested in. But also, it just makes the world of Mirandus more interesting. Um, I'm really interested to see, when we sell the third Citadel. I mean, I'm hoping somebody comes in and is just crazy, a character. If they're not super cool, no one would want to be at their Citadel or come to it. But, the more, if they're known throughout the land or they do something interesting or crazy, or I think that'd be really fun. The more crazy characters we have inside the game, the more interesting I think it'll be to walk around and hear the stories. So I'm kind of hoping the kings are out there and
Oh,
have an
they're
interesting,
there. They're there.
or a reclusive king that no one has seen. That's just as interesting.
That
He's
is
never
interesting.
stepped foot outside the castle. That's an interesting story.
It is. So I've got a question here from Anders, and this is a question that he actually has asked a couple times in various things, but I've never gotten around to putting it out there for you. Will there be some sort of map or coordinate system in Mirandus? Will cartography be a thing? And could map fragments, such as like treasure maps, maps to interesting places, could those potentially exist as NFTs that could be tradable?
Yeah, I think about this a lot actually. I love that idea. Again, like if we start talking about maps, it's like, oh, we got to have an auto map. Yeah, the auto map's going to be in the upper right hand corner, and that'll show you everything. And we'll put a fog of war in, and if you identify something interesting, it's starting to feel a little too, you know, jet fighter cockpit HUD. Um, I like the idea that if you have parchment and you have a quill and you have a cartography skill, that maybe you could kind of be generating a map as you're walking around, or you could take a moment and have a map being built based on
Capture it,
where it
yeah.
is you've journeyed. I think that's kind of interesting and cool, such that I really would love to have a map of this particular land. And if you have a great cartographer and this beautiful detailed map, I love the idea of that being an NFT.
I love, yeah.
Now, what someone, of course, is going to do is take a picture of it and put it online, right? And then you'll kind of know what the lay of that particular like sector or area of land might be. Um, but that's not the end of the world to me, because it should be hard to have a beautiful detailed map of one of these areas, I think, depending on the creatures and the wildlife. And if you have one and you choose to just give that away, I think you could do that. um, but I think when something's hard to get, people aren't always likely to do that. There could be dark sectors of the world that are terribly difficult to have a map of, and if you happen to have the only map of that area, I'm not sure someone would upload a PNG to a website.
Well,
um,
Ed777 mentioned something here, which I think is super interesting, because those of you who know me know that I freaking love history. And one of the things that I really love about history is specifically the maps. If you look at the way that maps are created throughout time, and the way that, um, the early maps, especially maps where they were drawn from ships, okay, which, the ocean is notoriously difficult to take measurements in, especially as you are moving across latitudes. You're taking measurements literally by throwing a rope with a piece of wood out behind you and dragging it along, and then pulling it back in and using that to mark your position on a map. And terribly inaccurate maps. um, and basically his question is, wouldn't maps need to be dynamic, for example, with a new deed being placed? I mean, for me, one of the things that is most exciting is the idea that maps wouldn't actually be dynamic. You could have an old map, and if anyone who's traveled anywhere, knows what it's like to have, especially back in the earlier days of Google Maps, like, when you get something that's a good couple years out of date and they're doing some new construction, and suddenly like you can't find anything. I love that as an idea, to have non-dynamic maps, so that you can't, somebody drew the map, and then shit changed, and now you have to go there, and you're like, oh, I think I bought this map from this person in this tavern, and this is going to be great because there's this amazing place where I'm going to go put my house. And then you get there, and something else is there, or a thing that you thought you were going to go find has moved. A seam of ore has been mined because your map is too old. I think that gives a skill like cartography, or the ability to, the ability to update maps, and to have the most current map. I think that makes it incredibly valuable.
yeah, I mean, I, I could see that we would have a camera, somewhat above a player, have a topographical way that something is sketched on parchment, or essentially kind of assembling a PNG on this parchment as they walk around. If they said like mark map, they could also make notes on that particular map too. I mean, I think you could have maps that would be showing an area, and then you might have maps that actually show you where something is in an area if that cartographer person actually chose to make that particular mark on the map. So maybe you'd know the terrain, but maybe you wouldn't know exactly where that magical thing was buried in the woods. So I like the idea that I mean, a map should not be something that auto magically updates as deeds are placed.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be a little funky.
yeah, you shouldn't know. I mean, in a world without the internet, which is an amazing magical thing, you should not know if something gets placed on the other side of the map from you instantly as soon as it's placed. It shouldn't ding pop up on your map as a new settlement.
Right.
That doesn't make any sort of sense.